It's kind of like taking your equation unit and we're kind of jamming it all together because you already saw it when we were solving. So we're going to be solving like we did yesterday, but we are going to be, using inequalities still. So just to go over a couple of things, we know all of our signs, little alligator there to remind us. If the pointy part is pointing at our variable, then it's less than. If the bigger part, the open part, is pointing at our variable, then that is greater than. Then we have the less than or equal to sign and the greater than or equal to sign. You solve inequalities the same way you solve equations. You need to isolate the variable. Isolate the variable means just get it by itself. And then you move terms to the other side by applying the opposite operations. So if they're subtracted, you're going to add. If they're added, you're going to subtract, yada, yada. And don't forget this rule. Okay, so I think I mistook it yesterday. When multiplying or dividing by a negative, we have to reverse that inequality symbol. And I didn't do it yesterday for the multiply, so I was incorrect in that. So we got to multiply or divide. We're going to reverse the inequality symbol. Okay, so keeping all the rules in mind, we're going to do some examples today. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate the variable. So my variable is the letter F. So I need to get rid of the 5 first. So if it's subtract 5, the opposite to subtract 5 is add 5. So if I add 5 to the left-hand side, I have to add 5 to the right-hand side. I noticed that some people do it a little bit differently than I do, and that's okay. But when it becomes not okay is when I don't understand what your math is doing. It's really important that you show your thinking and you show it mathematically correct. Just like when you write an essay, you can't use like LOL or anything like that in it. You got to use capitals, you got to use proper grammar. So we need to do that in inequalities too. Yeah? Yeah, I was. Yep. Sorry, brain's not working quite well this morning. That should be 14. Thank goodness you guys are here. Okay, so again, we have to show all of our steps. We actually have to add, and that's a big thing. We have to add, so the 9 plus 5, it does give us 14. I want to get the F by itself, so the 7 and the F are multiplied. So the opposite to that is divide. And because I divide it by positive, the inequality doesn't change, and 14 divided by 7 is 2. Okay, we're going to graph that. So I didn't give you a line to graph this one, so we're going to have to draw our own line. So I'm going to get my handy-dandy ruler out here. And when I say graph it, that just means put it on a number line. So here I am drawing my line, and I'm just going to put increments every ½ centimeter, just so I get, I don't have to put a ton. Oh, I drew my line a lot longer than I thought I did. So I did put a ton on that one. So I just used my ruler, made some increments on it. Remember what we do, we put our boundary, we put 2 right in the middle, and then the greater than go to the right. So this would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then my less than go to the left. So 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. Open or closed circle? Closed, because it's got the equal to sign. So I am going to close my circle above the 2, and F is less than 2. So is my arrow pointing to the left or to the right? Left. Less than is left. So hopefully we're feeling confident with putting these things on the number line. All right. Let's do the next one. So that was like two-step algebra. We had to add and then we had to divide. So that's why it's called two-step. We did two mathematical operations. We added the 5, then we divided by 7. That's why it's called two-step. This one is three-step because I need to bring the x's to one side and I need to bring the constants to the other. And you guys know what constants are? They're just the numbers. They have no letters with them. So, like I said, I normally, anytime you want to move a whole term, anytime like I want to move this 8, I want to move this 8 to the other side, I'm going to be doing either an add or subtract at that point. I want to pick it up and I want to move it to the other side. So I want to get rid of it on this side. So this is going to be, if it's a positive 8x, I'm going to subtract 8x because that will give me a 0 because I want to move it. And I'm going to minus 8x here. And notice I stack them under the like terms. So on my right-hand side, I just have that positive 10 left. You can write the plus sign if you want, if that helps your brain. Definitely write it. And now on the left-hand side, 6 subtract 8. 6 subtract 8. Negative 2. So I'm going to have a negative 2x, and then I still have that minus 4 there. So moving, collecting like terms to one side, that's your first step. I want to isolate the x, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So I'm going to be left with negative 2x is greater than 14. I want to get x by itself. So I've got to divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2. So once I've done, it's a divide by a negative, I'm going to have just be left with x on this side. I got to switch my inequality. So if the alligator mouth was eating the x, now it's going to switch directions. And 14 divided by negative 2 is negative 7. So I'm just going to put an arrow there just so we remember that we switched it because we're dividing by that negative. So x is less than 7. Maybe I'll do this number line right here. I'm going to put it to the left of it just because I know I'm going to need that room down there. If you don't have a ruler, then invest in one. You'll use it. I like the little ones, and then I can put them in a pencil case, and they don't get broken. If you need a big one, get one that clips into your binder so you don't lose it with the 3 holes. Okay, so my boundary is negative 7. So I'm going to drop that negative 7 on there. I'm going to pick numbers greater than negative 7. So negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2. And I'm going to pick some numbers less than negative 7. So negative 8, negative 9, negative 10, negative 11. Counting is hard. Open or close circle at negative 7. Open. So I'm going to put an open circle at 7. And it says x is less than negative 7. So is my arrow going to the left or to the right? Left. Beautiful. Excuse me. All right. So for this one, this is our distribution. This is where we got to leapfrog it in. This is where we're leapfrogging it. So our last example here, we have to multiply that negative 3 in there and that negative 3 in the back of that bracket. I noticed on your test, ladies and gentlemen, that a lot of you drew the arrows, which was awesome, but then you didn't quite know what the next step was. And so really the act is just multiplying. So we're going to multiply negative 3 by 3x. So that's going to be a negative 9x. Actually, let me write that extra step in there. let me do that. Negative 3 times 3x. And then we have subtract, and we're going to times the negative 3 by the positive 6 is greater than or equal to 27. I'm just going to write that step in there just so we remember that the action, the math that we're doing is to multiply. So I'm going to have a negative 9x, and then I'm going to have subtract negative 18 is greater than or equal to 27. And this is where we kind of struggled even in the first unit, is when we have subtract a negative number, we add the opposite. So the negative 9 stays the same, and we add the opposite sign. So when you have two negatives butted up against each other, they always change to a positive. And now that's just a two-step algebra. And we've done that lots before. We want to isolate the x. So we're going to minus 18 from both sides. So I have negative 9x is greater than or equal to positive 9. And again, if you guys don't feel comfortable with doing the math, do it on a calculator. Like there's no, like, if your number sense is still something you're building, then just use a calculator. There is no shame in that, but make sure you know how to use your negative button in the calculator. That's really important. Okay, so we're going to divide by negative 9, divide by negative 9. Because we are dividing by a negative, what's happening to our inequality? Oops. It's going to flip. All right, now I got to graph that. I'm going to put my little number line right up here. Oops, I got to put my increments on it. I like to make sure they're evenly spaced, so I like to use my ruler to help me draw them out. You don't have to be as precise. It's okay if you just draw a number line if they're not perfect, but you should definitely try. My boundary is -1. My boundary is -1. Values greater than -1 would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Values less than are going to be -2, -3, -4, -5. Open or closed circle? Closed. So we got a closed circle at -1. And this says x is less than or equal to -1. So are my values going right or left? Left. Did you guys notice that on this page, all of our values are going left? Interesting. All right. So now we have the ones with the fractions in them. And we kind of did this lesson all together, where you multiplied by brackets and you did fractions. And some of us did okay on it, but it definitely was a stretch. I think I went a little too fast on that. So we might have to go back and revisit it. The nice thing is you're kind of revisiting the exact same steps in inequality. So it's another chance to learn. If you struggled with that unit, it's another chance to get better at it. All right, so this is a denominator of 2. So opposite to divide by 2 is multiply by 2, but you have to multiply all the terms by 2. So all the terms by 2. So we're going to have 2 times 3. We're going to have x over 2 times 2 greater than 8 times 2. And I'm just writing that out so we can see it a little bit better. I'm okay with just sticking them up here and then doing the math, if that makes sense to you. But sometimes writing them out reminds us the math that we have to do. So if I was creating a cheat sheet, or doing anything like that, we would want to make sure we do the multiplying. So we have 6, and these 2's cancel each other out. So 6 minus x is greater than 16. I want to get x by itself, but this time I want to get rid of this 6. This 6 is a positive, so the opposite to that is going to be -6. So I am going to have negative x, because that negative stays with the x, is greater than 10. And I don't want a negative x, I'm not done yet. What's the invisible number in front of the x that we can't see? 1. So it's like saying there's a negative 1 here. And if drawing that negative 1 in helps, I know sometimes it helps me remember to do that. That means I got to divide this side by negative 1, this side by negative 1. So x, and because I divide it by the negative, I got to flip my inequality. X is less than negative 10. All right. We'll graph that. I got barely any room. Barely any room. Should have made this a little bit more spaced out. So negative 10 is my boundary. Values greater than that are going to be negative 9, negative 8, negative 7, negative 6, negative 5. Values less than will be negative 11, negative 12, negative 13, negative 14. I'm going to stop there because I'm trying to write my numbers too small. Boundary, is it going to be closed or open? Open, so open at negative 10. And x is less than, so we're going to the left again. Oh my goodness, all my examples are left. All right, so here we are. I hope everybody's pretty comfortable with this. If you guys aren't sure what numbers are bigger or less than, I can get you number lines that you can keep in your binder. That might be helpful for looking at negative numbers. If you'd like that, I can get those for you. All right, here we go. Okay, so now this whole thing is divided by 3. So it's like saying there's a bracket around that. It's like an invisible bracket. So if we're going to divide by 3, we got to multiply this side by 3, and whatever we do to this side, we got to multiply by this side. So 3 times 6 is 18. 18 is greater than, and those 3's cancel each other out. So P minus 4. Oh, and then this is just a one-step algebra question, which is pretty great. So if this is subtract 4, this is add 4. And we have 22 on this side. 22 is greater than P. So P is less than 22. I always start at the variable and read because it makes more sense to my brain that way. Excuse me. So 22 is so I drop 22 right in the middle of the number line, and then values greater than 22 are 23, 24, 25. Values less than would be 21, 20, 19. I'm getting a little lazy, I'm not filling in all my increments. Is my inequality going to be filled in or not filled in? Or sorry, my circle, is it going to be closed or open? Open. And which direction am I going, left or right? Left. Okay, all my examples were less than. I'm going to need to go back and change that. So there we go. Like a lot of algebra in this. So if you struggled with the algebra unit, this is a chance for you to practice a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to do word problems. Yeesh. Yeek. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to choose a variable and we're going to write an inequality that can be used to solve the problem. All right, so we're going to go up here and we're looking at Jake plans to board his dog while he's away on vacation. Boarding house A charges $90 plus $5 a day. So it's kind of like the taxi. B charges $100 flat rate, no matter if you stay or not, plus $4 each day. So you get charged a basic flat fee, and then you get charged a rate per day. So the thing that is going to add to our cost, like if I stay at boarding house, if I put my dog Quince at boarding house A and she stays for 1 day, how much is that going to cost me? I get charged $90 and it's $5 per day. So how much is that going to cost me? 95 bucks. If she stays for 2 days, $100, right? We're just adding an extra day to it, $100. If she stays at boarding house B, if we stay for 1 day, how much is it going to cost us? $104, okay? And if I stayed for 2 days, how much would it cost me? $108. Perfect. Okay, so what's the thing that's changing? It's the number of days, right, that my dog stays at the kennel. So when we define our variable, we're going to say let D equal number of days, because that's the thing that is affecting the price. How many days my dog is at the kennel. All right, so if I create this inequality, and this goes back to our last unit that we did about writing equations. So we know our fixed rate is the 90. And we know that the rate, the $5, gets multiplied by the number of days we stay. So the fixed rate is always the constant, and the rate, so it would be like per kilometer, per day, per text message. So it's the thing that changes. That's the one we multiply by the variable. So this one would be 100 plus 4 times D. All right. So this is the question. How many days, so we want to know the number of days, will boarding house be less expensive than B? So we want boarding house A, we want A to be less than B. So really we want A to be less than B, right? That's what that sentence says. If I were to translate it into math, we want boarding house A to cost less than boarding house B. So what we know is we have an expression for A. So we're going to take 90 plus 5D, because that is our expression for A. And it has to be less than the expression for B. What's the difference between an expression and an equation? Do you guys remember? Equation has an equal sign. So these ones, notice I didn't put any equal signs in them. So that's why I'm referring to them as expressions, because they don't have an equal sign. All right, so really, ladies and gentlemen, this is just math at this point. You guys know how to solve this. This is a three-stepper. I need to bring this 4D to the other side. I need to bring this whole term to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 4D from here. If I subtract 4D from the right-hand side, I have to subtract 4D from the left-hand side. So that will leave me with 90 plus 1D is less than 100. And then I need to minus 90 because I want to get D by itself from both sides. So 1D is less than 10. So that means you have to stay less than 10 days in order for boarding place A to be less expensive than boarding place B. So sorry, you guys can't read what I was writing. I apologize. So because D has to be less than 10, just means I have to board Quince for less than 10 days for boarding house A to be the least expensive. And graphing the solution just means we're going to put it on a number line. I'll wait till you guys get that copied down. Okay, let's graph it. Easy peasy. We're going to put a number line together. I'm going to go every centimeter now. I got more space. I can do that. I'm going to go every centimeter. So our boundary is 10, so I'm going to put it right in the middle. Values greater than 10, 11, 12, 13. So we have 9 and 8. Are my less than. Open or closed at 10. Open. And the values are less than, again, we're going to the left. This whole lesson I'm teaching seems to be less than values. I'm going to have to go back and change that. Okay, that one's super difficult. Like, if you're struggling to understand this one is super difficult, and breaking it down into smaller parts does help. But if you struggle with this, just make sure you ask for some help so that we can get through it together. Ooh, okay. No, you gotta wait till the lesson's over. Okay, so this one we struggled with decimals. I think we just kind of got in our own heads about this on the equation unit, because you do all the exact same things, but we probably have to rely on our calculator a little bit more. 2.6a plus 14.6 is greater than negative 5.2 plus 1.8a. I just rewrote the equation so I had room to fill it in. Okay, so I want to get all the a's to one side. So I want to bring this guy to the left-hand side. I always move my variables to the left-hand side. There are no rules saying that you can't go to the right-hand side. I just do the same thing over and over again so that I don't forget. So if it's an add 1.8, I'm going to be subtracting 1.8a, and I'm going to be subtracting 1.8a over here. Now, we have a negative number, subtract a negative number. So we're going to have a even bigger negative number. So if I do this in my calculator, negative 2.6, subtract 1.8, and I'm going to get a negative 4.4. So this is going to be a negative 4.4a plus 14.6 is greater than negative 5.2. So nothing different. All the steps are exactly the same. All the steps are exactly the same. But now I'm probably going to rely on my calculator a little bit more. So I want to get rid of the constant, so I'm going to minus 14.6 from both sides. So I'm left with negative 4.4a over here is greater than, and now I'm going to do this, and this is going to be negative 19.8. And again, if you need to use your calculator, I really encourage you to do that so that you don't make a simple mistake. I want to get a by itself, so I got to divide by negative 4.4, divide by negative 4.4. So a is over here. I've divided by a negative, so I got to switch my inequality, and I'm definitely going to my calculator for this one. 19.8 divided by 4. Ooh, I didn't use my negatives. Let's try that. Sorry, you guys can't see that. Negative 19.8 divided by negative 4.4. A negative divided by a negative, what's my answer going to be? Positive, right? So those are the rules that you remember from grade 8 or that we went over in our first unit. And so we're going to get a positive 4.5. All right, now here's the tough part. Not really the tough part, but just a different part that we haven't done. We're going to verify our solution. So everywhere we see, like our original one was negative 2.6a plus 14.6 is greater than negative 5.2 plus 1.8a. If when we verify, what we're going to do is we're going to take this value of 4.5 and we're going to put it into the equation where we see the letter A. So we're going to take our answer. This is how we verify things. We're going to take 2.6 and we're going to multiply that by 4.5. And we're going to check to see if the left-hand side is greater than the right-hand side. So we're going to do some math here. I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to multiply these together. I know my answer should be, if it's a negative times by a positive, what should my answer be? Negative. So if I don't get that in my calculator, if I get a negative answer in my calculator, I know something's gone wrong. So this is a negative 11.7 plus 14.6 is greater than negative 5.2 plus 1.8 times 4.5. Okay, so I just did my multiplying. Now I'm going to combine my constants. So I'm going to have my negative 11.7 plus 14.6. And I'm going to get a positive 2.9 is greater than, and then I'm going to have negative 5.2 plus 8.1. All right. Did I do my math wrong? Because that's not a true statement, is it? 2.9 is greater than 2.9? That's not right. Did I screw something up? Anybody check my math? Did anybody do the math with me correctly? 8.1 plus negative 5. No. What? All right. So is this a true statement? No, because what would I need here to make this a true statement? I need an equal sign. So this is false. This is false. So that's not a true statement. 2.9 is not greater than 2.9. I'm just checking my math again. Negative 2.6 times 4.5 is 11.7 plus 14.6 is 2.9. All right. Well, this one wouldn't work because it's false. I would need that equal to sign to make it a true statement. Are you guys okay? Is everything okay over there? All right. Okay. Well, that is how you verify a solution, and we found that this solution was false. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've got your questions from your textbook there to do. If you didn't finish yesterday's assignment, I would encourage you to do that first. Oh, while we're on this video, can we go back and fix that question that I screwed up yesterday? It's like, I don't know what question that was. This one, it's on page 8 of the notes. I screwed this up. I didn't flip the inequality sign. I didn't flip the inequality sign, so let me just fix that real quick. And we're gonna have to fix our arrow. Our boundary will stay the same, but our arrow is gonna need some help. Is everybody on page 8? Is everybody fixing their notes? I missed this word, multiplying. When you're multiplying or dividing, you need to flip the inequality. So we multiplied by -2, so the inequality flips to this way. And that needs to change, the word needs to change to greater than. And my arrow is now going to go to the right. Whew, that wasn't good. Now I'm going to have to re-upload these notes. That's okay, as long as we fix it. So if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative, we flip the inequality sign. So if I were creating a cheat sheet, I'd definitely make sure that that piece was on it. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are officially done inequalities today.